Now, Mr. President, it's Wednesday. Now, normally it's Thursday when I come down here and talk about somebody who's making a huge difference in my state, somebody we refer to as the Alaskan of the Week, someone who is doing something for the community or the state or the country or maybe all the above. And I know we got a new set of pages, but I think it's commonly known that this is the most anticipated speech of the week by the pages. I see the heads nodding, so that's great. Thanks. You guys are learning well early, so that's wonderful. And I know that the presiding officer really enjoys it as well. So I'm going to talk today, Mr. President, about Calvin Williams, who everybody in Alaska knows as Cal, who is our Alaskan of the Week, lives in Anchorage via Louisiana, and I'm going to talk a lot about Cal here and why he certainly deserves this great honor. But, Mr. President, I also like to, when I give these remarks, just talk a little bit about what's going on in Alaska right now. So we've just celebrated summer solstice, which in a lot of states isn't a big deal, but in Alaska it's actually a huge deal. It's the longest day of the year, which was last week, and that really means something. You get the midnight sun energy, and everybody's out. There were celebrations throughout the state, friends, neighbors, gathering at parties, community events, well past midnight. I had the opportunity to spend last weekend in Fairbanks, Alaska, where there's a midnight sun baseball game and a 10K, midnight sun 10K run. I got to participate in some of that, but it's just great energy, great feeling, a lot of sunlight all night. So across the country and in Alaska, we also just celebrated Juneteenth, which marks the anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. Anchorage celebrated last weekend, and Cal Williams, our Alaskan of the Week, was there, as he's been there nearly every year since the first celebration in the 1980s. Cal's a staple at that event and so many other events in Alaska over the decades where people get together, where he has been a community leader trying to do good things for our community throughout the state. So let me tell you a bit about Cal and how lucky we are to have him in the great state of Alaska. He was born in 1941 in Monroe, Louisiana. I know we have some Louisiana-ins as pages here. Now, that was the segregated South, and he was born 7 days before the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. So, a very patriotic family. His parents immediately joined the cause of fighting, supporting our nation during World War II. His mother was working in the factories to help out the war effort, and his father joined the Army and was sent to the Pacific Theater to defend America. So Cal was basically raised by his grandmother, who happened to live across the street. And from church through K through 12, he went to a Catholic school built and run by the Franciscans to serve the African-American Catholic community in the area. Now, nobody in his family was Catholic, but it was the best school in the area, so that's where he went. The lessons he was taught at this school, the Little Flower Academy, to serve the less fortunate, to feed the hungry, to help all in need, have stayed with Cal forever, have really driven his sense of service. The much-beloved Sister Consuela, who was the longtime principal and homeroom teacher, made sure that he learned all this. Quote, "Sister Consuela was feared and respected," Cal said. "If you did anything bad, if the sister didn't even see you do something bad, you knew that God did. I carry that with me to this very day." After high school, he attended Grambling University, another all-black school where he pursued theater and singing. Anybody who knows Cal knows that that is another thing that has stayed with him throughout his whole life. Then, like his patriotic mom and dad, he decided to enlist in the Air Force. He was stationed at Vandenberg Air Force Base, where he worked on the Titan II missile system, an elite position, something that he credits to the schooling that he received at Little Flower. When he got out of the Air Force, he made it back to Louisiana to take care of his father, who had gotten sick. Now, this was during the height of the movement for civil rights, one of the greatest movements, of course, in our nation's history, a lot of which took place here on this Senate floor. And as he often does, Cal jumped in. He jumped in with both feet. He began working with CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality, one of the leading civil rights organizations in the early years of the civil rights movement. He and 6 other students were the first black students to proudly integrate what was then called Northeast Louisiana State College. Eventually, a friend who had moved to Alaska talked him into coming up to our great state. This was in 1965. Cal brought all of his intelligence, his theatrical and musical talents, his abiding deep faith, his fun, and his deep commitment to civil rights and community service to our state in 1965. In some ways, it was a good time to be an activist in Alaska. Our state certainly isn't perfect. It's a state, though, that's very committed to equal rights and justice for all. But just like everywhere in the country, we had our problems, we had our challenges, and as I mentioned, we certainly weren't perfect in that realm. So Cal had work to do. Initially, a dishwasher in the hospital by day and a community activist at night. He helped lobby the mayor's office in Anchorage to get paved roads and to bring electricity to predominantly African-American neighborhoods. He helped bring people into the voting booths, which was so important. And the same friend that brought him to Alaska, Charles Lavigne, started a newspaper that focused on the African-American community. He joined with the Alaska Native leadership to lobby for the landmark legislation, again, that took place on the Senate floor here, the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act in 1971, and he became president of the Anchorage chapter of the NAACP, where he is still a vice president to this very day. Now, Mr. President, I've only gotten to 1971, and you can see how much he has done. In the 1970s, he had a little sojourn to Hollywood to fulfill a lifelong dream of being in the movies, and he got some gigs, a spot in a film with Angie Dickinson. Pages don't know who she is, but she was a great actress. Some commercials, but like so many people who leave Alaska, he missed it too much. So he decided to come back, and he did. So over the years, since he's been back, he's helped raise funds for an African-American economic development venture. The group bought a building in the Fairview community of Anchorage, which is still there today. They had a social club on the top, sponsored by the Alaska Black Caucus, a place to meet with executives and bank officers in a nice setting, community leaders. He worked in television. He worked for the Alaska Housing Finance Corporation, which has been so key to helping people get home ownership. And all through these years, he clung to his roots and his faith. He's a member of the Knights of Columbus and a faithful parishioner at St. Anthony's Catholic Church in Anchorage, where he's the director of the church's Filipino gospel choir, which sounds like angels. When we sing, he said, we sing for the Lord. And no doubt, when they sing, the Lord is listening. He visits prisons to read the Bible with inmates, sings every week to the patients at the Providence Extended Care, and every other week to our senior home, what we call the Pioneer Home in Alaska. The residents there love Cal's Elvis impersonation. And if you're in Alaska and happen to be there for Christmas, you should stop by the Beans Cafe, a place where the hungry go for a meal. And Cal will be there every Christmas wearing a Santa cap, singing for hours for everybody who comes in the door. Mr. President, this is a gentleman who has done so much for his community and my state. And what he is most proud of, what is he most proud of when asked? Quote, my greatest achievement was in 2017 when I received the St. Francis Stewardship Award from the Archdiocese of Anchorage, Cal said. St. Francis was the patron saint of the Little Flower Academy. So I've come full circle, he said. Sister Consuela would be proud of that. Then he adds, but nothing was ever enough for her. But it's enough for all of us, though, Cal. So thank you for all you've done for Anchorage, for so many different communities, for Alaska, and as an example for our country, for your generosity, kindness, enthusiasm, faith, and faith-filled service throughout your life. And congratulations, Cal, on being our Alaskan of the Week.